What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Schrager Hour. We recorded our first episode last week, and I gotta say, subjectively, not objectively, I don't have any numbers. It was a massive success. Heard from a lot of people. Everyone loved it. Sean Payton brought the goods. So did Logan Swaim, our second guest. Biggest takeaway was I've never heard Payton like that. He was telling stories that he'd never told before, and that's what we want out of this podcast. Of course, this was recorded on a Tuesday, and then on Thursday I went to Bristol and we did a prediction special with Jason McCarthy and Dan Orlovsky and the great Field Yates, and we put that up on the feed, and then that did really well. I'm already loving this pod. This has been really fun, and the feedback's great, and I encourage you, if you're listening and you're subscribing, tell your friends about it, because it's only going to get bigger and better. We're only going to get more and more interesting guests. I know I was in the news personally Friday, and that was from a morning show appearance on Get Up. That story lingered into the weekend and is still sort of lingering, and I hope you appreciate that. I'm not going to go into any details here because that's not why you're here. You're here to talk NFL, and I have spoken to so many different sources and so many different people about the first week of football. And my old colleague at Good Morning Football, Kyle Brandt, has a very good line that he's been using for many years. And Kyle says, week one is a liar. Like, do not put too much stock into week one. You know, last year, if you remember, the Gerard Mayo Patriots went into New England and into Cincinnati, and they beat the Bengals, and they beat them handedly. And this was on the road, and we were like, all right, Gerard Mayo's got these guys dialed in. And then you know what happened to the Patriots season. Last week, week one, I believe the New Orleans Saints were the highest scoring team in football. They ended up being one of the worst teams in the league. Do not put too much stock into week one. And yet, what's the fun in that? Like, what is the fun in that? What is the fun to say, well, I don't really value this until October. This is still the preseason. Guys are still getting into playing shape. We dealt with a lot of teams that didn't do preseason games. I can't really put too much stock in what we saw in week one. I'm going to overreact. I'm going to have observations, and I'm going to have thoughts. So knowing that week one is a liar, and knowing that these thoughts could look very foolish in a month, and knowing that when we're talking about the Super Bowl, two of the teams that are playing might have lost in week one, here are still my thoughts from the very first weekend of football. Number one, I think the Jaxson Dart era could start faster than was anticipated, even by the New York Giants coaches, when that game started on Sunday against the Commanders. What a dud from the Giants. Just an absolute dud. I don't know if there's a single fan base that was on such a high to such a low in a matter of 4 hours than what the Giants fans just endured. This was maybe the greatest August Giants fans have had in a decade. New quarterback room, new pass rusher in Abdul Carter, excitement about Jaxson Dart. And the thought was, hey, you put any team on the field, this Giants defense is not going to let them just throw the ball over the yard. And at the very least, the offense is significantly upgraded from last year. Well, then they go to Washington, and it was probably the most inept offensive performance that we saw all week, maybe this side of the Cincinnati Bengals, who escaped with a win. Here's my take on the Russ Dart situation. I like Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson can still start and win games in this league. I also know the facts of it. The Giants signed Russell Wilson in March to a 1-year deal without any knowledge that they were getting Jaxson Dart in the draft. So when they signed Russell Wilson, it was almost like a placeholder. All right, we've got Russ. We at the very least know we can roll the ball out and we can compete with Russell Wilson. He could still play football and he could still be a starter in this league. But a month later, you get a first round pick, and that first round pick is supposed to be a project, and we're going to work on this guy, and we're going to say, and then he comes to training camp, and he not only has the swag and the confidence and that bravado that, oh, wait, this could be a QB1. He actually plays really well and shows that he's way ahead on the timeline than maybe you expected. Well, then that 1-year deal with Russell Wilson, well, that makes him just basically a rental. So why not expedite the process? And I know the other side of it is, well, because you can shatter Jaxson Dart. And behind that offensive line, if he gets clobbered, that can destroy his confidence. And wait till they're 0-8 and then the bye week. No, 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 no. This is 2025 in an era where we've seen Bo Nix take his team to the playoffs last year as a rookie. We've seen Jaden Daniels take his team to the playoff as a rookie. 2 years ago, CJ Stroud took his team to the playoffs as a rookie. If if Jaxson Dart can get on the field and can play quarterback without peeing down his leg, like I think it might be time already. And that's because they don't have a 4-year contract for $100 million with Russell Wilson. That's because this isn't Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes, and this team is a competitive team that we're thinking could be Super Bowl champions, and Alex Smith can take them to the playoffs, and we don't need to rush him. No, this team is in dire need of quarterback play. And if Russ is not going to score an offensive touchdown, I don't know if you're doing this to just do it. Last year, the Patriots started Jacoby Brissett in week 1, and he won week 1. But very quickly, it became evident that, okay, it's time. It's time for Drake May to get into the game. I go back to a couple of years back where I remember sitting in a room and Bill O'Brien explaining how Tom Savage was going to be the quarterback in Houston, and then eventually Deshaun Watson will get his opportunity. One half into week 1, Tom Savage lasted. They benched him and they put in Deshaun Watson. And then Deshaun Watson in week 2 on a Thursday night looked like he was the greatest quarterback to ever enter the league against Cincinnati on a Thursday night game. My point is this. The Giants aren't contending for a Super Bowl. Jaxson Dart isn't one of these guys that's so wide-eyed and can't handle the pressure. What do you have to lose? Opinion of me, the opinion side of me says throw him in against Dallas. The fact of it is, I think we probably will see him week 2 or week 3 if Russell Wilson doesn't light it up against the Cowboys. Giants fans are ready. Giants fans have waited. And all that positive energy, all of it, was squandered in 60 minutes of football. Number 2, the Green Bay Packers defense is for real. Like, for real, for real. This might be a Lions thing without Ben Johnson, but I don't care who was on the other side of the field on Sunday. They defended their home turf in a way that was awfully scary. And if I'm a Philadelphia Eagles, I took notice. I've been waiting to find this team that's going to challenge the Eagles in the NFC. And you can make arguments for the Rams. And you can, of course, say, oh, well, Tampa actually is very good. And you can do all the other teams in the NFC North too. I look at the Packers defense, though. What a unit. 9 tackles for a loss against Detroit on Sunday. 4 sacks. You had players who have been considered busts over the course of their career because they were first-round picks in Lucas Van Ness and Quay Walker, and they were flying all over the field. Rashawn Gary had a sack and a half. Micah Parsons only played 29 snaps and felt like he was the most dominant player on the field when he did. And then you lose Kenny Clark inside, and you're like, oh, well, they don't have a chance. And then Wooden comes in at defensive tackle, and he's stuffing the run. The Detroit Lions averaged 2.1 yards per carry on Sunday. Jahmyr Gibbs had a stat line of 10 catches for 30 yards. Jared Goff had the lowest yards per attempt that he's had in his career since his rookie season. That could be a Lions thing. Could also be a Packers thing. Jeff Hafley, the defensive coordinator, is very well regarded, and he is a lot of talent. And I didn't even mention Edgerrin Cooper, who had 12 tackles and flies all over the field. Packers are for real, folks. And at the very least, their defense is going to be something to deal with. We'll see how they perform against Washington on Thursday night. Number 3, I was in Chicago, got a chance to speak with some folks on the Vikings sideline before the game. JJ McCarthy is one of the biggest winners of the week in the NFL in week 1. And that's because he proved a lot of people wrong. He also silenced a lot of people who were tweeting one half in. I mean, the amount of freezing cold takes that we got after just one half of football is astounding if you want to go check the receipts. I think everyone was chomping at the bit to go out of their way to make a point that maybe Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi, the GM, didn't know what they were doing there, and that they should have kept Darnold either on a franchise tag or signed him to a long-term deal, or they should have kept Daniel Jones on a contract or even a franchise tag deal. Or that maybe they went after Aaron Rodgers this offseason and say, hey, let's have JJ have another year of watching. And yet the Vikings, they really never wavered. They stuck to their guns. They went with JJ McCarthy. And after a brutal first 2.5 quarters, JJ McCarthy was amazing on Monday night. And what I loved was the reactions on the sideline. He has that touchdown at the end. He scores. He comes running over. Kevin O'Connell is looking at the cameras, mean mugging like he's Nick Sirianni. You've got all those offensive players pumped up, but you also saw the defensive guys on the sideline fired up. And what I take away from that is, oh, these guys love that guy. These guys want to fight for that guy. These guys are excited for that guy. JJ McCarthy, not the most vocal guy. JJ McCarthy maybe doesn't come across as somebody who's going to be on the cover of GQ magazine like he's Joe Burrow anytime soon. JJ McCarthy has the respect of his teammates. And that win over what he overcame with that injury, and then this offseason, them really pushing all their chips in the middle of the table on him, for him to come back on the road in his NFL debut, pretty cool stuff. Number 4, Bills Ravens was simply an awesome game. Like, awesome game. I want that game again. We could break down decision making, which was all over the league and was rampant around the league with question marks on a lot of different decisions by these coaches. It's amazing in 2025 with all the AI and all the analytics that we still see boneheaded decisions. It's easier to do that on a Monday morning or a Tuesday morning if you're in my chair than if you're actually in the heat of it and the bullets are flying. But I look at that Ravens decision, and it's 4th and 2, and they've got the ball, and it's in their side of the field, but Lamar hasn't been stopped all night, and they decide to punt it away to Josh Allen, who has also been unable to be stopped all night. And Allen marches right down the field, makes all the plays, and sets them up for the game-winning field goal. And I knew Monday morning that was going to be a big talking point, and it was. And a lot of people said, you have to go for it. You got to let Lamar do it. I actually see it the same way that Harbaugh did, in that there are 5 first rounders on that Ravens defense. 5 first rounders. If we punt it away, you can't make one stop of this Bills offense. You can't make one stop. You can't keep them from being in chippy field goal range. The answer was no in the end. And that's alarming. When you've got Roquan Smith and Kyle Hamilton and Owe and all of those players that we talk about in such glowing terms, and yet you give that many points up in 4 quarters of football, and when it matters most, yet again, your defense can't hold the line, it does concern me. I'm not going to kill Harbaugh for that decision. I will kill Harbaugh, though, for the fact that in every one of these games, it just feels like the Ravens can't get over the hump. That one's big because the Bills have the easiest schedule in the NFL right now. After that game's out in the rearview mirror, I talked to the research folks at ESPN. The Bills have the easiest schedule moving forward. So that means they might be able to hold serve and they'll get the number 1 seed. You know, I picked them to win the Super Bowl. One of the reasons why, the home field advantage if they get that 1 seed. This is a big tiebreaker. They're only going to play the Ravens once in the regular season, obviously. And if you look at their AFC East opponents, all 3 of those teams lost. Bills might have a cakewalk this year, and it's early to say that, but they already have the tiebreaker on Baltimore. My big winner of the week, Josh Allen. What a performance. I was asked on SportsCenter to give one word to describe Allen's performance. I said destiny. I know it's so dramatic. And what are we talking about? Destiny. It's week 1. It's also just football. It's a sport, but it feels like destiny. Like that's like the first 10 minutes of the America's Game documentary when they win the Super Bowl. Like it's an hour-long doc. We're going to do 10 minutes on week 1. We're going to do kind of a montage of week 2 through 10. Then we're going to have the big game here, the big game there, and then eventually we'll get into the playoffs and you'll have 3 players talking and they'll be like, week 1, that set the tone though. We were down 15 points at home in front of that crowd in the last year in that stadium, and Josh found a way, and Josh got it done. He was amazing. Amazing. Other great performances across the league included the one from Geno Smith, who was outstanding, Daniel Jones, who was outstanding, but Josh Allen was my big winner of the week. My media winner of the week. Yes, I'm going to do that each week, I think. Media winner of the week, because there were a lot of debuts, a lot of different things. My media winner of the week was Mr. Beast. No, I'm kidding. I didn't watch that. I heard about it. I didn't watch it. Apparently it went off without a hitch, but I wasn't watching Mr. Beast or whatever else was going on. I was watching the football, but I didn't have Mr. Beast on. My media winner of the week And this is not me kissing ass to my new employers, but Randy Moss was freaking awesome on the Manning cast. They put Randy Moss on in the fourth quarter, and Randy Moss, of course, is a Viking. The Vikings rattle off 21 straight points. Moss is like measured, offering insight, giving stories. Told a great story about how he was a high school quarterback until he played wide receiver, and the reason he ended up playing wide receiver is because he couldn't remember the plays. Like Peyton and Eli are dying laughing, but then they get into like the end of the game and strategy, where Peyton is a maestro. And if you remember in this game, there was a certain amount of time. It was before the 2 minute warning, and Eli and Peyton are on the Manning cast, and they're discussing, do we just, with the new rules, do you just kick it directly out of bounds? So you basically have not only the 2 minute warning, but you still have one timeout in your pocket, but they get to start at the 35-yard line or the 40-yard line as opposed to a touchback where it's the 35. They're breaking it all down with all the new rules. And even for me, who, knows the rule book and knows all the new rules and sat through a Walt Anderson seminar at the league office about the new rules, I'm going through my head like, what? Moss is chiming in perfectly. And there's three, two Hall of Famers in Moss and Peyton, and a third, Eli, I imagine, is going in this year. And they're talking about the intricacies of clock management. What would you do here? How do you do it? Then, the kicker kicks it off and he doesn't kick it out of bounds. Vikings receive it. They run it out of the end zone. They get tackled. They can now take knees. They just have to kind of move the ball a little bit, and then they did the right thing. But for the Bears to not just boot it out of the end zone and get a touchback, or kick it straight out of bounds and get a flag, and because you had to start at the 40, they actually burned themselves from having an extra timeout. That extra timeout would have been the 2 minute warning because there's only 2 minutes and 2 seconds left. I say all this. If you watch the game, if you didn't, this is at this point yesterday's news. But in the moment, you had Peyton, Eli, and arguably the most talented wide receiver to ever play the sport, breaking down whether you would kick a ball out of bounds through the end zone, and they didn't miss a beat. I thought Randy Moss was fantastic. I had never seen Moss do game commentary. I don't know if he's ever done it before. So in that forum where he's sitting at home and he's watching and he's deferring to Peyton and Eli a little bit, cool. But like, it got me a little excited. Is there a place in a broadcast booth for Randy Moss? Because he was that good. Obviously excellent in the studio and one of the best storytellers you'll ever meet when it comes to football. But Randy Moss on the Manning cast, that was my media winner of the week. All right, our guest this week is an absolute legend, one of the best to ever do it. So fired up. Al Michaels. All right, with no further ado, when we first got this podcast announced, the wonderful folks at Omaha said, why don't you put together your dream list of guests, and like, who would you want to have right out of the gates that would be someone that you'd love hearing stories from and that you could obviously pick their brain on football for the upcoming season. I said, all right, I got two coaches that I love who are raconteurs, guys that just tell stories. It's McVay and it's Peyton. And I said, and if possible, I know he's going to be busy that week, but I would love Al Michaels to join the show. Well, guess who is joining the show? Ladies and gentlemen, Al Michaels on the Schrager Hour.
You just needed somebody not named Sean to come on with you.
I'm naming this podcast. So originally this podcast was called The Season with Peter Schrager. The NFL would not give us the rights because I left NFL Network. All right, that's fine. Then we were going to call it something else, and someone else had that name. Then I'm like, I want to be the Schrager Hour, and it was a tip of the cap to Magic Johnson and the Magic Hour. Do you remember the Magic Hour? Were you a guest on the Magic Hour?
I was never a guest on the Magic Hour, but I've known Magic for many years.
Of course.
But by the way, if you would have paid the NFL like $50,
I know.
You would have owned the rights,
That's all it takes. We know.
No dime left behind. You know that.
Mr. Beast calling the game.
There you go. That's a hell of a show, by the way, that Mr. Beast show.
It is. It is on Amazon, right?
It's on. No, it's on.
Is it somewhere else? It's like here's
it's somewhere wherever it is.
$50 million for you to stay in a heated chamber where your pants are on fire, and well, yes, I'm in.
You'll do that. I would too. Of course.
So will I. Al, I love this. I want to tell the listeners and the viewers that like one of my career highlights, and I'm not going to be exaggerating. I've had two kids and all. One of my life highlights is just getting dinner with you at Toscana last year, and what a blast we had. I go in. It's L.A. I'm not an LA guy. I'm a New York guy. And Carissa Thompson and Spoon, who's your producer or one of the producers at Amazon, were so kind to say, "Hey, we're getting dinner with Al Michaels on a Friday. Do you want to join?" I walk in, Al, you have the corner table. You are the ultimate host. And we told stories for about 4 hours that night. And I just, can you set the stage? Tell me about Toscana and how many times have you been? Who's the waiter? Because that guy was amazing. I felt like this was
Mark,
Mark. Tell
Mark,
me about
Mark.
Toscana. Let's do a little commercial for Toscana.
So Toscana opened up, it's in Brentwood. It opened up in 1989. And we walked in on maybe the seventh or eighth night it was open. And now we have been there since it's our neighborhood restaurant. It's 7/10 of a mile from our house. And the menu is fantastic. So I'm guessing over 36 years now. We have been there probably 100 times a year.
A year. I
A
thought you were going to
year.
say a
Yeah.
hundred times.
So by the way, you want the corner table? Show up 3,000 times and it's all yours. They even the best thing about Toscana though is that it's well known that or it's kind of well known uh, for some people that I don't eat any vegetables, and you know that.
Yep.
I refuse to have anything green, any mushrooms, etc., etc. But me, with my culinary traits, was asked to do the forward to the cookbook. So when you walk into Toscana, you see the cookbook, and there I am, no veg. And they did a coming out of a commercial. Our man T Man last
Yep.
year,
Mark
Mark
Titleman,
Titleman,
amazing producer.
the great producer, and just one of the when you come out of a commercial, they did they surprised me. They had
Okay.
gone to Toscana and they'd set up a table. Mark was in the shot, the great waiter, and on the plate was a big old steak and a side of pasta. And they've now named it after me. And they tell me it's like the most popular dish there. And of course, what do I get for a royalty? Zippo.
Zippo. Oh, it's
You got it.
amazing. It was great. And the night we were there, it was like, I want to say maybe Larry David was there
Could have been.
and maybe Billy Bush was at the table next
He
to him.
was
Like,
Billy's everywhere. Billy hits about 7 or 8 restaurants a night. So no surprise.
all right. So this is part of the LA Al Michaels experience. And then there's the golf club. And I talked to Sean Payton last week, and the first 10 minutes was about his crew, his Gaza Ranch crew. And it's Wayne Gretzky, and it's all these old hockey players, Kelly Chase and Ryan Whitney. Who is your golf crew? Because I know you'll hit the links and you've got your spot at the club.
Well, yeah, anybody. I mean, I've got a number of people. I've been a member of the club now for 35 years, about as long as I've been going to Toscana. And it varies. But I used to be fairly decent. Now I truly stink.
Okay.
So yeah, and I'm probably a nine holder these days. So I'm sort of I've worked my way out, or they've actually thrown me out, to be more precise, of the games that I used to play in. Those
New,
guys they're too good.
new clubhouse, though.
New clubhouse. We look. We've got a lot of great people there. Yeah, we have a lot of NBA coaches. Doc Rivers. I sponsored Doc into the club
Is
back in
that right?
2005. I did.
I
Uh-huh.
love this.
I think JJ Redick is up for membership. I saw his picture up on the board the other day. Mike Dunleavy belongs there. Mike's coached, I think, 5 or 6 different teams through his career. We got Andrew Whitworth is in the club. We have Jared Goff is now in the club. We have Matthew Stafford's in the club, and a number of hockey players. So we're well represented in the world of sports.
I love it. And yet, for all your LA and how you are really an LA guy, I live in Brooklyn. And I know this all started for Al Michaels in Brooklyn. Where did you live in Brooklyn, and what are your earliest sports memories as a Brooklyn native?
Peter, I am not an LA guy. I am a Brooklyn kid.
That's my guy.
Oh, come on. I lived there till I was 14 years old. It's my DNA.
And it's so obvious when we talk that I'm like, this is the guy who has been cut from the same cloth. But I didn't know that. I thought you were like 5 years old and you moved out west.
14.
Okay.
So we lived in Flatbush, right in the middle of the borough. And don't forget, I'm old enough to have gone to Ebbets Field, and not only have gone to Ebbets Field a number of years before they moved in 1958, and then ironically, my family moved to Los Angeles the same year. I never missed a beat with the Dodgers, but I saw Jackie Robinson play in
Did
person.
you really?
Yes, I did. Pee Wee. My father walked me to Ebbets Field when I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and I think that formed the basis for me loving sports and somehow wanted to be involved in sports. And I think the first conscious thought I can remember from that trip to Ebbets Field was, I want to be here every night. I want to be here every night for the rest of my life or every day, and I want to get in for free.
Yeah.
I got the job.
You did it. That was it. You figured it
It's
out.
crazy.
You
It really
figured it
is.
out. All right. And then they win in 55. Do you have
They
memories of
do.
that? Or like, what was it like when Brooklyn wins the championship in New York
I
City?
remember it being great. My father was beyond excited. The whole apartment building was in an uproar. It finally happened because they were playing in a
Yeah.
number of World Series up until that point, but always losing, uh, usually to the Yankees. And they took care of them in 7 games. Johnny Padres, Sandy Amorose made the great catch at the left field line, and it was the one championship they won in Brooklyn.
And they leave a couple years later. What do you remember of them leaving for the West Coast?
I remember being very distraught, but then I find out that my father gets transferred in his job, so we're going out to LA with the Dodgers. The first year wasn't very good. The second year they won the World Series.
Yeah. Yeah. And
He-
it's Koufax and all those guys.
I watched Sandy's entire career. Oh my
Okay.
God. What a,
Is
what
it-
a career too. What a career. A short career, but phenomenal.
you go to Arizona State, and it just so happens that there's some baseball players there also.
Well, in the registration line as a freshman in 1962. I'm talking to the guy standing in front of me. It's a hot day. The line is going on forever. And he is there on a scholarship to play baseball. And we strike up a conversation. And I said, well, I want to broadcast sports, and hopefully I'll be able to broadcast a few of your games, over the next 4 years, which I wound up doing probably about 200 of them. So he's there the first year. The second year, Rick Monday comes in. The third year, Reggie Jackson comes in. So I'm a junior. Reggie's a freshman. But the guy who's my classmate in 1962, 10 years later, what happens? This is one of the great things that's ever happened to me. I'm announcing for the Cincinnati Reds. In those years, if you were the lead announcer for your team, you got to do the World Series on NBC television
Is that how it
with Kurt
was? There wasn't
with
national. It was you did the regional guys.
No, it was national, but Kurt Gowdy and Tony Kubek, who did the game of the week, did the World Series, and they were supplemented with the team announcers. So I did games 1, 2, 6, and 7 in Cincinnati on television, 3, 4, 5 on radio, NBC radio with Jim Simpson in Oakland. But the point I'm getting to is that when I walked into the clubhouse of the Oakland A's, who had won the pennant the day after the Reds had beaten Pittsburgh in the playoffs, I walk in. It's 10 years after I'm standing in the registration line with Sal Bando.
Yes.
And we looked at each other and we went, this is crazy. Two kids with a dream at 17, and now we're 27, and we're both a part of the World Series.
And you're calling Sal Bando in the World Series.
In the World Series. Now, Reggie would have been in that World Series, but Reggie tore his hamstring by stealing home in the playoffs against Detroit, and Rick had been traded to Chicago.
Oh my gosh, this is great. I love
Yeah.
this. Baseball. I don't think the viewers of the football of the last 30 years realize that you were such a prominent voice in baseball, and those Cincinnati years were so prominent, of course. And where is it what's with the Clooney thing? Wasn't Clooney involved with doing something about like Cincinnati baseball?
Well, what happened was his father, uh, Nick Clooney, had a variety show
Okay.
on local television on the CBS affiliate. And, when I get the job, I'm 26 years old. I had done the Hawaii Islanders of the Pacific Coast League. The Reds are a regal franchise. They're the first professional franchise. And people around town are going, what? A 26-year-old kid who did some Hawaii games is going to be the announcer. But Nick was very instrumental in welcoming me, getting me on the show, and telling folks, hey, this guy's going to be, he's going to be great, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, fast forward about 15 years ago, I'm playing in a charity golf tournament in Las Vegas. And George Clooney, his son, is playing in the tournament. I didn't get to see him on the golf course, but there's a banquet that night. And
Which course we're talking about? Shadow Creek? Where are we
Shadow
at
Creek.
here?
That's
Okay.
exactly right.
I love
So
the golf stuff too, just so you know.
fantastic. I'll fill in all the blanks for you. So George Clooney's across the room. My wife says, "Oh, you've got to go up," and I don't want to do that. I can't. He's over there. Anyway, a few minutes later, we made eye contact, and he comes right over to me. He comes right over. Before even saying hello, he says, "I've always meant to ask you, why did you leave the Reds?" I go, well, I said the Giants tripled my salary. He says, now I feel better.
There you go.
So,
That's
so
it. It wasn't a Cincinnati thing.
no, when he was 13 or 14 years old, he's lying in bed. He told me he's lying in bed with a transistor radio like I used to do when I was a kid.
Yeah, of course.
And listening to the Reds, especially, we'd be on the West Coast. So the games wouldn't even start until, 10 o'clock, 10:30 in Cincinnati. And he's lying in bed with the transistor radio.
It's incredible. And I feel like your baseball broadcasting was like my childhood because then, of course, you're doing all of those games. And I remember being in my living room as I guess it was 89. I was 7 years
Yep.
old. And, it happens, the earthquake in San Francisco. You're on the call. What can you do to kind of bring us back to that moment? You probably told the story 1,000 times, but for the listener, it's like you're calling the World Series and there's an earthquake and you're on the call.
So not only are we on the call, we're doing it on camera. It's 5:04. We'd come on the air at 5 o'clock. Game three in San Francisco. The A's were leading 2 games to nothing. At that point, they would wind up sweeping after a 10-day delay. But we're on the air. I'm with Jim Palmer and Tim McCarver.
Okay.
And they come on the air, a single shot of me, give you the preview to the game, bring in Tim, and Tim is now narrating a piece of tape over a play that had taken place in Game 2 on Sunday night in Oakland, and all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. Now, having lived in California for a lot of years, I knew exactly what it was at first. And it's one of those things where if you live through an earthquake, it starts. Now you're not sure how strong it's going to be. You're not sure how long it's going to be, but it was a jolt. And my words were, "Hey, folks, we're having an earthquake."
You knew right away.
I knew right away. I knew right, absolutely, because I know the feeling, I know the shaking, and the only thing that was kind of petrifying for me and for Jim and for Tim is that we had our backs to the field. We're sitting on a table, which is going to be the table we'll turn around and use, to put all of our stuff on, and the camera's in the back of the booth. So there was a moment in time with the movement, and the movement was a very like horizontal movement, back and forth. You think you're going to get pitched out of the booth.
Mm.
So that was just, a thought that I had beside being on national television, right? But I actually wound up getting cut off. Part of what I said, I think at one point, I said, we'll be back in San Francisco, I hope, after this. And then we had almost no communication
Really?
with the truck. And now the lights are out in the booth, but it's 5:04 in the afternoon.
I
in
love the
October.
details. Who's
No,
producing? Who's in the truck? Who's at the
Kurt
switch?
Gowdy Jr. is producing.
Okay.
Kurt Gowdy Jr., who's the son of one of the
Of
guys that
course.
I idolized, Kurt Gowdy Sr. So we lose communication, and in those, it's so different than it is now. There's no internet, there's no
Yeah.
Twitter, there's nothing like that. So I have no communication with the truck at that point. There is a phone in the booth, a phone, the old
Dial
tap
up, whatever. Yeah.
tap in the numbers. So I picked the phone up to see if I could get a dial tone, and I did. And now who am I going to call? So I called a man who I started at ABC with in 1976, who at that time had become the president of the ABC network, Bob Iger. I call Bob Iger in his office in Los Angeles.
What role was he at Disney at the time?
At that time, Bob had in
Or
1989
ABC?
he was running entertainment, and he was, I'm not sure he was the president of the network, but he was the head of entertainment, which in effect is the president of the network, especially at that
At that
particular
time.
time. And I called Bob and I said, what can you tell me? Now he's watching, but he knew it was like a 6.8 and it was centered where, so that's how I got my initial information before I was able to get the contact with the truck. And what I had to do with the truck is I had to go physically down there, and they gave me a hand mic, and it looked like one of those mics that Frank Sinatra would sing with, in Vegas, right? the old silver mic, and I spent like the next almost 15 hours on the air that night.
Was it 15
And
hours? Like that, you just
well,
kept it on.
they kept me up through the next morning because I had to stay up for Good Morning America, at least the Eastern version of it. I didn't get back to the hotel till maybe 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning.
I know you're in it. I know you wrote a memoir, which I loved, but like there are so many of these moments in American history, and you're intertwined in so many of them. Some of them sports related, some of them not. I love the chapter you're talking about it, like the OJ chase. All of a sudden, Al Michaels is on there because you know the neighborhood.
He was a neighbor. I played a ton of tennis with him. He's 4 blocks away. So I'd been over there hundreds of times. We played a ton of tennis. At the point when it happened in 1994, he had bad knees and he was into golf, but I was still into tennis. I hadn't gotten into golf yet. So who do I wind up playing a ton of tennis with at OJ's house? Al Cowlings,
Oh my
AC.
God. Come on.
No, it's all intertwined. It's crazy. It really is. It's unbelievable.
And then you're on with Peter Jennings and
Yeah,
Captain Jenks calls, and you're a
right.
Stern listener, so you know.
Of course. Absolutely. And I was a big Stern fan, and I knew I'm sitting there trying to, everybody in the country is watching this thing, and his one of his, I thought it was Captain Jenks. It turned out to be the guy was Maury from Brooklyn. He
Oh,
was
okay.
another,
I just
he,
assumed
he
it was Jenks.
he was another prankster, and he called in, and of course
This is
Peter Jennings bought it
this is
hook,
during
line, and sinker.
ABC Nightly News. And what was his report? He said something like about OJ, but then what was the word that he used? Like, and you used an incredible word that forever is remembered.
Well, what I did, I used the words less and um, lest anyone thinks that was a phone call. It was anyway. So
Legendary. Lest
it,
anyone thinks that was a real phone call. I'm like,
no, no, I had to disabuse Peter of it, but I mean they kept this guy, Mr. Higgins, the fictional character, Mr. Higgins, on much too long. And I'm trying to, I'm looking at I'm
you're
not on camera at
gesturing.
that point, but Peter's in New York, Koppel's in Washington, uh, you know, and I'm going like this, like, stop, get him off the air. You can't. Oh, and then the guy ended it. The coup de grace was when the guy at the end said something about in Booey to you all.
You knew it was coming.
Well, I knew what it was for starters because that he said, "Oh, I see OJ and he looks scared." The whole that would be two. All those cops are hanging out, and I'm going, oh, no, 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 that's not a neighbor. But the word I used was farcical. So
Farcical, but less first less
let
and then farcical.
a word I never had used lest, but now I'm trying to parse it, and I know that on Monday Howard will play this, and he will play this forever, and it's probably the greatest prank call ever made to the Howard Stern show. I still hear it these days. I'll tune in once in a while, and they're still playing
They're
this
playing it
thing.
as a drop always.
Totally. And to this day, especially in New York, because the New Yorkers, as we know, are a different breed, and they're so on top of things like this. But I'll be on the field before the game, and this is 30 years later, and guys will yell out to me, "Hey Al, totally farcical, totally." It's
uh,
beautiful.
all right, so the miracle we don't have to go through the call, but then the miracle movie comes out. And I remember talking to you, and this, I don't know if you put it in the book or not, but I remember you were saying that they weren't able or they didn't use your call in the movie at first. What was the backstory with that? Because I think this is a great Hollywood story.
Well, apparently the sound editor who'd won a few Emmys or Oscars, I guess, in the movie business. Um, I I worked with Gavin O'Connor, who did a fantastic job directing it, and I helped them piece things together. And I said, look, don't give me a script. Tell me how you want me to advance this, and I'll say it in the way I would have said it. So, in other words, the U.S. beats Norway, but then 2 days later, they're playing Romania. I said, I'll get you there, but I have to do it out of my voice, and I did.
So they didn't want to go through the
No,
transcripts, and they also didn't want to
no, no,
do.
no, none of that. I said, guys, I know what you need to have done, and I will do this.
We're advancing the script, so we don't have to do 12 minutes on the Norway game. It's Al
No,
Michaels'
no,
voice saying, "And
correct,
U.S. wins." Yeah.
correct. And I'm not doing what anybody's going to write for me. I know how to get you from point A to point B to C and down the line. But when it came down to the end of the Soviet game, uh, I said, I am not going to recreate the last 45 seconds. You have to live with it.
Mhm.
So Gavin O'Connor was fine with it because it's kind of, it's an iconic call to this day. It's played, around the clock in various enterprises. But what happened was the sound guy, the sound man, the multiple Oscar winner, said, "Oh no, no, it sounds too muddy. It's not." And he wanted it to sound, like perfect, like the same. Because now you're going 1980 on tape to
Sure.
2004, where they now were digital and the whole thing. So I refused, and it comes time to. I didn't know what they had done with it at that particular point. I said, "You guys got to live with it. Period. End of story."
Use the actual broadcast call, drop it in.
Yep,
That'll be
that's
that.
it,
I'm not
guys.
redoing
It's
it.
not that hard. People know what it sounds
They
like.
know
Anything,
it.
anything else would sound fraudulent.
It's also kind of cool. Like it's the
Yeah,
actual broadcast. There's a charm to that.
right.
Yes.
So the backstory is the movie's going to come out on a Friday. The Saturday before, I'm going to a screening of the movie. Okay, there are 8 people sitting in the. It's called the Hollywood Gold. It's a theater. There are only 8 of us sitting in it. Me, Linda, my wife, my daughter Jennifer, my son-in-law Jeff, Michael Eisner, and Jane Eisner, and Bob Iger and Willow Iger. We are the 8 people in the theater watching this.
I'm
Okay,
already giggling.
everybody's pretty excited about this. The movie was good. Now we get to the point, and I can see what they did. And the son of a bitch he drowned me out with music. The lights come up at the end of the
So we
movie.
don't hear your voice. You don't hear the final
Oh
call.
yeah, I'm like, I might as well be sitting in the stands yelling something, right? The music swells, and then, this was this guy getting even with me. Okay, so
Like he's Hans Zimmer over here.
oh my God, it's incredible. So what happens is the lights come up, and Michael Eisner is sitting like behind me. He goes, "Where's the call?" I said, "Michael, here's what happened." Michael got into his car, called Gavin O'Connor. He says, "You clean that up." It wasn't Gavin's fault. It was the
No,
other
yeah,
guy.
yeah, yeah.
So get this thing cleaned up, or I don't release the movie on Friday. There you go. How's that?
Movie
Right?
comes out.
They
Al
cleaned it up.
Michaels,
They
1980
cleaned it up.
calls, and
They
oh, what a
they
story!
they cleaned. Not to name drop or anything, but I was with Bradley Cooper one time. I
Okay,
told Bradley Cooper this story when he did A Star Is
Star is
Born.
Born. Yeah,
Right? Do you know what? 10 days before the movie came out, do you know who he fired?
stop.
That guy. Yes, he did. You can't make this up.
This is the
You
best.
cannot make this up.
This is the best.
I know.
This is
Yep.
so
He fired
good.
the same guy.
I'm sorry to just ask you to retell stories. I love this, and I think the listeners love it too. Can you tell the basketball story with you and Costas?
Costas. So they had this idea, the Zucker brothers, who had done a lot of, funny stuff, airplanes,
Airplane, yeah,
the
all
whole
that.
thing. Um, so they send me a script for the movie, and it's too silly. But then I get a call and then they want to pay. There's a lot of announcers. Chris Berman's in it, Dan Patrick's in it, Mike Patrick's in it. I mean, all kinds of, there were regular guys who were on the air at that particular time. And I think they wanted to pay all of us what they call favored nations, same amount of
Everyone
money.
makes the same amount. We don't have to talk about what it
Everybody
was,
makes the
but
same
same
amount.
amount. Yeah.
It was a decent fee, but the movie was not something that I necessarily would want to do. But then Costas calls me. I'm friendly with Bob for a ton of years. Oh no, you really got to do this. We'll have a lot of fun. And Bob convinces me that we should do this. I said, okay, I'll do it.
And for the viewers and the listeners, this is the most esteemed duo. You got Costas and Al
Yeah.
Michaels, and this silly, goofy
Oh,
Trey
totally.
Matt Matt Stone movie. Like, yeah,
We
like
thought it
off
was
the wall. Yeah.
we thought it was going to end our career. We really did. And Bob at one point says, "You're excited. Feel these nipples," and not that anybody saw the movie, but that was how in the coming attractions, everybody around the country, no matter what movie you went to, that's what you saw Bob say. Anyway, the thing was, we show up at 7 o'clock. It's the last day of shooting. They need us. They have to have us because we're going to take you to the end of the movie. So we had a wonderful morning. We're laughing like crazy. We're going, this is so silly, but we're having a blast. Then we have a long lunch break, like it's too long. And to amuse us, they showed us the dailies. So we're watching, what they've shot to this point, and as it's going on and on, we're looking at each other and going, "Oh, uh, what did we get ourselves into? Oh my God, the movie is horrendous." Now, Bob says to me, "Well, at least it's a great payday." I said, "Excuse me?" We flip a coin. Who's going to go first to tell the other guy what he's getting? I lose. I tell him. Bob's fee is 4.5 times more than mine. So now I've fallen off the turnip truck. And I called the guy who made the deal and I said, I'm walking out right now.
Yep.
And he said, "What we, he calls one of the Zucker, which one was producing it. I can't remember which one at that point, and tells him I'm walking off the set. No, no, we'll get this. What do you mean you'll get it right? So they eventually got it right because I was told at one point, what do you want to happen here? Because they didn't want to pay me what had to pay Bob.
Of course.
And I said, no. I said, not only are you going to pay me what you paid Bob, but you're going to pay the lawyer's fee on
Yeah.
top of it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, which they wound up doing because they said to my lawyer at one point, what, what does Al want now? He said, we can take Al out of the movie. And he said, that's exactly what Al wants. You take him out of the movie, which I knew they couldn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I wound up getting what Bob got plus another few grand for the lawyer.
And a pretty good story.
Oh, it's great. And the movie, but the movie it's one of those things. The movie is so bad that's actually good.
Al, that movie is still on Comedy Central, and people still reference it. And
I know.
it's a beloved
Hey,
movie.
hey, I still get
You get
residuals.
those residuals.
And
You
a
get
couple
those.
of couple of people at that time sent me like the cassettes. You'd buy the cassette at Blockbuster, and I wrote back on the thing. I said, "Why would you buy this track?"
Track.
Signed Al.
I know.
Oh, I know,
It's so
crazy
good.
stuff, man.
Man,
Crazy.
I love these stories. Quickly shifting, just quickly, just to football. I gotta ask, like you and Madden at one point, it was like I'd hear you two, and I would just have a smile on my face. And I think maybe the greatest call of any Super Bowl of all time happens to be John Madden's last game, and it was that Arizona Pittsburgh Super Bowl down in Tampa. And you have that Santonio Holmes catch, and of course you have the James Harrison play. When you go through the list of like your favorite games, I mean not your best calls, but your favorite games that you're a part of, that game has to be on the list.
Number one.
Is that right? Number one?
Yeah.
That's not me talking to you ahead
Number
of
for
time.
football. No,
Number
I'm not.
one.
No, people will tell guys who know me will tell you I've said the same thing for years. First of all, I mean that game had so many crazy components to it. What is Arizona doing in the game? They were a terrible team, a terrible franchise
I
for
think
all
Collinsworth
these years.
earlier that year said they were the worst playoff team he's ever seen enter a playoff.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And I'm working with John. Chris is part of our pregame group. But first of all, what is Arizona is in that game because they were the number 4 seed and somehow wound up playing the 6 seed Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game. And Larry Fitzgerald is having at that point a postseason for the ages, maybe the greatest postseason anybody has ever had. So we come into the game. Kurt Warner is the quarterback. Pittsburgh is a big favorite in that game. And the game itself it was just a phenomenal game. First of all, the Harrison play
Mm.
is to me, that's the greatest play in the history of the Super Bowl. The clock is winding down. The score is 10-7, Pittsburgh. Arizona is going to take the lead. And all of a sudden, Warner throws the pass. And Harrison, who's been on the field for a number of plays before, that has to be a little
Has
gassed
to
at
be
that point.
exhausted.
And somehow picks it off at the goal line, gets a number of blocks, goes down the sideline. Larry Fitzgerald is chasing, but runs into Anquan Bolden on the sideline. And then Harrison, you don't know if he scored or not. He goes into the pylon. The clock goes to 0. If he's out at the half-yard line,
Yeah.
they don't have the time to kick a field goal. right? So now you've got that fun, off the charts play. Now Pittsburgh has a two possession lead. Who plays it at halftime? Bruce Springsteen
Not bad.
on top of it. And then Russ Grimm is one of the assistant coaches for Pittsburgh. And we happen to spot him not in the locker room, but out on the near
He
the
was
bench.
listening to Springsteen?
Oh, he wants to see Springsteen. He's not going to miss Springsteen. I mean, this game has so many components to it. And then Arizona is able to pull off a double goal line stand to keep it a two possession game at one point. And what I mean by that is that there was a personal foul, I think, on Adrian Wilson.
Yeah, number
And
21, right?
they,
Big
they, well,
safety.
they were going to have to kick a field goal, but there was a penalty, and then they had another, three downs to try to get in and couldn't. So Arizona, in effect, had a double goal line stand, and then there's a safety, and then Arizona gets the ball back, and somehow now they're within one score, and there's the pass to Larry Fitzgerald over the middle from Warner, some 45, 48, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And with 2:20 to go, and I'm blurred out, Arizona has the lead. I mean, it was stunning.
It's crazy.
And then the drive was off the charts. I mean, Roethlisberger was phenomenal. They made every third down they had to make. It was phenomenal. And then, the Santonio Holmes catch, if you look at the Sports Illustrated cover,
Oh,
had three Cardinals in the shot, in the picture. And he was not his first choice. And Ben, at one point, we had Ben in a meeting a couple of years later. I think Ben said he was the third or fourth option on that play. And then he lofts it up. Somehow he keeps his feet in bounds, and that was the game-winning touchdown. But the game also ended.
remember Warner had a chance there. He was at half field, right?
It could have been the tuck rule, but they weren't going to call that. And Terry McCauley, who
You work
referees
with
Super
them.
Bowls, is a good pal of mine, right? And then we've had Terry on the air for many years with us at NBC and with Amazon. Um, you know, you just couldn't call the tuck rule at that point. Otherwise, had they called it, there would have been one more play.
Yep.
And of course, the greatest ending in the history of sports would have been Larry Fitzgerald catching a Hail Mary at the end.
Right.
But
Totally.
it didn't happen.
Now, when you guys finished that call, did you and John know that this is it? Was that already announced
Nope.
beforehand? No.
Did not. But I felt great about everybody's performance that day. The truck had a phenomenal day. I mean, Drew Esikoff, our director, getting all the shots on Harrison's return. I mean, that was magnificent. That was hard to do, and everything we did that day just worked. It was like, to me, the perfect telecast. John was phenomenal. I was happy with my work, and there was a definite afterglow going down to the truck after that game. And I thought this was great. And this was John. John and I were ending our seventh year together, because we had done four at ABC, and now
Came over.
three at NBC, 06, 07, 08. And I had no idea. And I didn't know until April.
Really?
No, I didn't.
So you guys go to league meetings and all that, and you're at the owners?
No, we didn't go
meetings?
to. No, John never went to the league meetings
wouldn't
because
do
he
that?
had to take a bus trip across the country. He didn't any more of those. No, I can't remember if we were at the owners meeting or not that year, but and then John and I stayed in touch, but I had no idea. And then I got the word from Dick Ebersol. Dick called me one night in the middle of April and says, John's done. He said, Dick even said he had flown out to Northern California to try to talk John into continuing on. But John said, when John retired, it's just the way he put it. He said, it's time. That's it. It's time.
Yeah.
He knew it was. But you know what? He had a lot left. I think what really prompted John retiring at that particular point, the bus travel.
Yeah. It's just, I can only imagine. I can only imagine.
I mean, we had a Miami game one night, and then the next game was in Seattle. The next game was back in Baltimore. The next game was in San Diego. Yeah, too much.
Collinsworth and you were on the call for the Malcolm Butler play, an amazing call as well from you. I was in the building for that one too. And to me, if you're asking me, everyone says David Tyree is the best play in Super Bowl history. To me, it's the Malcolm Butler interception.
Could have been. I mean, the Tyree thing was amazing because, I mean, just the way
circumstances,
it happened. The circumstances and pressing it against his helmet. The guy had only caught, 8 passes all year, whatever it was. No, the Butler play was stunning and shocking. Second down. Everybody always said, well, Marshawn Lynch should have carried the ball. Well, maybe,
Hmm.
but then again, it's not that easy to run it in from the 1 yard line. How many times have we seen a guy stop?
Totally.
Right? So everybody, oh, it should have been Marshawn Lynch. Well, maybe it should have been. We'll never know. But to me, what it should have been is rolling Wilson out. I mean, you
I know.
can't have Russell Wilson throwing a pass into all that traffic in the middle of the field.
We always talk about the what if with the Patriots, with the Giants and David Tyree, and what that means. Like, if Seattle wins that game, that's back-to-back champions.
Mhm.
That's 10 years now that Belichick and Brady haven't won a Super Bowl. And suddenly you're in the middle of the 2010s and the Seahawks have two Super Bowl championships and they're rolling. And you don't know. Like, we could look back
Yeah,
on history and say Seattle was the team of that era, not the Patriots.
yeah, coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Isn't it
I know.
fun?
That's
I
why we
love
love
it.
sports. We
The
talk about
best.
this, and nobody has an answer, right?
It's the best.
Like, everybody knows nothing. You know that, right?
Oh, I know.
Nobody knows anything, and everybody knows nothing.
I know. Real quick, we'll wrap it because I just could do this, but let's talk about the Amazon season ahead. You guys have a really good group. I have been very vocal as someone who's not on the show of how jealous I am of that pregame show. And what I love is I feel like you guys have a real family on the road. It's not only the pregame show with all timers and Carissa and Fitzy and Sherman and of course Whitworth. But then you also have the game crew, and I love Kaylee and obviously you and Kirk Herbstreit are doing a fantastic job. You seem rejuvenated always, and it feels like it's like the best version of you right now doing these games.
Well, thank you, but it's a fantastic group. And we have so many laughs, and there's nothing better in life than laughing. It's the best elixir, and everybody is funny. We all get each other. And I'm glad that you're bringing it up. Because I mean, Carissa does a fantastic job.
She's the best.
Herding. Yeah, you work with herding all of these animals. It's great. We just have a blast. And now you got the team man, Mark, producing. Pierre Musa who does a phenomenal job directing the whole crew. And I have a lot of the production people and the engineering people have come over from Sunday night.
So
So
you
I've
knew all
known
these guys, yeah.
for years. Yes, yeah, it's very comfortable. And we have, Jared Stacy from Amazon who helped put this thing together. I mean, he did a fantastic job. You know how hard it is to put together the
Oh, I
the
know.
ancillary programming. And somehow he made this happen out of thin air, right? You,
Truly.
you put this person here and that person, the whole thing, and it just works. It really does.
Thursday night, it's Commanders versus Packers. You don't have to get into your bag of information. I know you've been talking to the teams, but do you get a jolt? Are you still excited at this age to say, okay, another football season, week one or week two in
Yeah,
this case, let's go?
sure. Yeah, it's 40 years for me now in prime time in the NFL.
40 years.
40. This is the 40th. I started in 1986 on Monday night with Frank Gifford, the two of
Wow.
us in a two-man booth, and then Dan Deerdorf joined us in 87. So I've danced the dance for a long time. I still get excited when I
Yeah.
walk into a stadium and
Yeah.
I watch the stadium fill up. I love that. And as a kid, that's what excited me about sports. I would make sure I got to the games early, and I'd love to watch the stadium fill up, and I still do. And it's great. And then you go to Lambeau Field, of course, with all the history. And I guess this is pretty close to 40 games at Lambeau. I'd never been there until 1986, my first year on Monday night. But it's exciting. It's great. I'll never forget, as a kid, you dream about having a job. I got the job.
I
I
know.
got the job. And Kurt Gowdy, back to Kurt for a second, senior, once told me, I think during the 1972 World Series, we went out to dinner on the off night, and he was just great. And he said, "Hey kid, you're going to have a great career. Don't get jaded. Don't
Mm,
get jaded." And those words ring in my ears right now. I got, I have a job that people would die for. I know it. I understand it. I've been lucky through the years, and then I keep winding up in all these places like Zelig, and I'm there, and I'm thinking, What are you going to bitch about? How
can't.
stupid? How stupid would it be to
What a
to bitch
lesson.
about this?
And what
Yeah,
a lesson to all these people in our industry. And I know it's covered so much. It's almost like it's a beat in itself. And there's all these reporters. And I wasn't around during the Rudy Martzke era. I'm sure it was always this way. But I feel like there's as much of an industry covering sports media as there is about football right now. And
right.
I always say the same thing. Just have fun. Just smile. Like, let's enjoy this.
Enjoy it, right? And everybody's now comparing this to that. I'm going, wait a second. This is like going to a restaurant. There were two great desserts. Enjoy them
Enjoy
both,
them both.
right? Yeah,
Enjoy them both.
enjoy them both. It's we're not here for that long a period of time, and it's like, hey, man, suck suck it all in or soak it all in, and and
Yep.
and don't bitch and moan and carry on about other stuff, because otherwise it's just debilitating.
One last question. Production meetings, you've been to 40 years of them. If the listener and viewer at home isn't aware, production meeting, you get the guys, the coaches, the quarterbacks, the star players, the coordinators, you get them in a very comfortable setting. They're candid, there's no cameras, and they talk about the game, but you also get to know these people and they tell stories. Who is your all-time production meeting interviewer or interviewee?
Interviewee
Yeah.
as a head coach.
Or quarterback. Let's do coach and quarterback. Who are your favorite where you're like, oh, we got this guy. I can't wait. Just buckle up.
Well, Sean McVay is as good as anybody I've ever had to deal with. As you know Sean as well as I do. Mike Shanahan was
Yeah.
terrific.
One of my great regrets
Terrific.
is I only got Shanahan as the
Yep.
Redskins coach. I never had him in those Broncos years or even the Raiders years. Tell me about Shanahan.
He was just he was revealing. He knew that whatever he told you, you'd use it in an appropriate way. And Mike he's just a good man. And another guy that I really enjoyed, but you'd parry with him, was Parcells through the
Really?
years. Yeah, because Bill was really smart, and Bill would almost challenge you to, to make sure that it was an interesting conversation. Bill, so, as I say, Bill could be a little prickly, but
Sure.
for the most part, I really enjoyed. And as he got older too, I really understand and have a great deal of admiration for who Bill was, and what he still is to this day. I call him the great bard and soothsayer,
Yeah.
because he says so many relevant and poignant things. But I've had, through the years, the quarterbacks. Peyton Manning was phenomenal.
Go
And
on.
not just because this is part of his Omaha operations. I'm not just saying that, but Peyton knew so much about. If a player was on a practice squad on the other team, he would know what the guy's hometown was.
Mm,
I mean, that's how much he studied everything in case the guy got into the game. Maybe he'd say something to him. Maybe he'd get his goaters, whatever. But Peyton was always looking for any edge he could get. He was terrific. Rogers was great. I mean, still is. I mean,
still is.
Aaron is
He is one of one as far as
you
personalities in this world.
usually smart. Absolutely. Brady was Tom. Tom would have to hold back a little bit only because of who he
Yeah.
had to answer to. Right.
Yeah.
He's got the coach who, Belichick through the years of 50, 60 meetings with Bill. He ran the gamut. He could be really good
Mm-hmm.
or really terrible. Depends what kind of a mood he's
I
in
was always
at
on
a
that
particular time.
third or fourth crew for Fox,
Yeah.
so we never would get the Patriots during my time like as a sideline reporter. But then I did these Saturday night games with Tirico and Warner, and we get the Bills and Patriots, and we get in there, and I'm not sure what we're gonna get. Brady was great. Belichick, and then like Tirico knew how to play it a little bit, started talking a little bit about the Naval Academy. Then he started talking a
Oh,
little
of
bit
course.
about
Oh, yeah.
lacrosse. And all of a sudden you get lively Belichick. And then I ask a question about like, so what do you think of Danny Amendola's usage? And it just shuts it down.
That's it. Period. No. Oh, no. No. He's good at running out the clock. Oh, yeah. Navy. All you had to do was talk about how Navy did the day before.
Lob him, man.
Right. Even if they lost, he was into that sort of. Right. Exactly. Right.
Talk a little
Exactly.
Wesleyan lacrosse for a
Yeah.
second, little Johns
Yeah.
Hopkins.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
I'll tell you one of the great meetings. The guy is still active now. He's playing with the Patriots. Josh Dobbs. I think
yeah,
he's the back. I
the
mean,
astronaut, as he's still in the
right.
league.
Oh
I
my
don't
God,
know.
he was telling us his backstory is phenomenal. We had him in Tennessee. He had to take over in Tennessee a couple of years ago in a big game.
Yeah. I remember
Uh,
it was a Jacksonville, Tennessee game for a playoff spot.
it was a well, this was the game before that. I think we had
Okay.
them. Can't remember who they were playing, but it was in Nashville. But yeah, through the years, most of the coaches have been really, really good. Most,
Yeah.
a couple of guys I would not put in that category, but They're all dead and gone anyway. So
That's fine.
What's the difference?
Well, it's funny. It's like people ask me that question. I'm always like, well, Sean Payton would just read you the depth chart and tell you about every single player, and then it would go back and forth. But I always like the guy that I always appreciated was, and I don't know if he'd be okay with me saying this, but like Jeff Fisher would show up with a leather jacket and a beer in his hand. And
That was Jeff. I had him in a Super Bowl. I had him in the St. Louis, Tennessee Super Bowl in '99. Oh no, he was great. But I'll tell you another guy, Mike Tomlin. Tomlin's great. And the great thing with Tomlin will have the answers to your questions without you having to ask the questions. So you get a lot out of a meeting with Mike because he knows what you need to know, and he will, he'll do like a monologue for 5 minutes, which is tremendous. That helps us too. Instead of trying to, and then Sam White years ago.
I love this. Tampa Sam White or Cincinnati Sam White?
This was Cincinnati Sam White. Right. I think we had him in a Hall of Fame game where you've got 90 guys in uniform, right? And we go into the meeting with Sam, and he takes the flip card, and he goes through all 90 guys. That was insanity.
For an August 1st game.
We don't need this. It's the Hall of Fame game. It was great. All 90 he went through.
So good. Oh, good. You're the best. Amazon Thursday nights.
Right.
I'm not blowing smoke up your ass here. I think it's a fantastic broadcast, and I have nothing to gain. I'm not with those guys, and I'm not a free agent. So I just truly appreciate it. And hearing your voice is just like, I don't know. It feels like America. It's kind of dramatic, and you might roll your eyes, but like I hear your voice on a football game. I know I'm in the right place.
You want me to sing God Bless America to you right now? What do you want me to do?
Kate Scott version. I would love it.
And good luck to you, Peter. That's great.
You're the man. Al Michaels. Good. Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Well, that might have been my favorite hour I'll have this NFL season. Al Michaels, just stories. That's what I love. Fantastic. You'll hear him on the call on Thursday. That's why we're doing this. I don't know where else you'll find that. This is so fun. Many thanks to the team. That's Mark Grillo. That's Rochelle. That is Miles on the back end. And then to our wonderful folks at Omaha. And then our DJ, my man DJ Leverage with the music. Guys, we have an awesome week ahead of us. Can't wait to recap it next week and get you another great guest. Enjoy the football. And please tell your friends, subscribe and listen. This is the Schrager Hour.